Nostalgia. I started this channel about 9 years ago as a direct response to the Christians who were coming over to my personal channel and leaving random comments. I didn't think that was the right place to engage them, so I made this place to engage them instead. And for my first video on this channel, I decided to make an observation of Kent Hovind, who had recently been released from prison at the time. The last Hovind video I watched was the debate against culture Catz, and he was not prepared for that.
I'm not prepared for that.
And prior to that, of course, was the Aaron Ra debate. Obviously, Aaron Ra is an evolutionary biologist, and he's got an amazing series of videos on the subject. So that debate was just beautiful chaos.
I think variations happen within the same kind, but they're limited to that kind.
For instance, but there's no definition of kind still given. That was the core of what we've been talking about for the last half hour, is trying to get you to define a kind as distinguished from a clade. Now, I've given the definition, and I've called you to give examples of that, and you failed to do so. What you have instead done was deny the very definition of evolution as being a fact. You would agree, and you have described already how you accept certain aspects of evolution, and not just change within a species. You're talking about changes between species, which means you accept macroevolution as well. I know you define it as something else because you have to use equivocation. But just because you use the wrong definitions doesn't mean that your definitions are right.
But Hovind, unfortunately, only has the same script in every single debate. And so I'm sure that just like me, you also got very quickly exceptionally bored watching Hovind videos. So it's been a while since I've checked him out. So after all this time, I thought it's only fair that we check in and see how he's doing. Hey, let's do that.
Specifically, we're engaging the question, is there reasonable scientific evidence for evolution?
Yes, as the moderator said, this is a debate between Austin and Kent over is there reasonable evidence to believe in evolution. Kent opens first, and his primary tactic is to shut down speciation as quickly as possible.
I believe the Bible is absolutely true. It's scientifically accurate. God made everything in 6 days, about 6,000 years ago. There's been variations happening within the same kind, but that's not evolution. It's a variety of the same kind of critter.
And in his opening, Austin explains that rather than giving what he considers to be the best evidence, he's instead going to try to give what he thinks might be the best evidence tailored for the audience, for Kent's audience specifically. I'm sad to inform you, if you do watch this debate, I don't think he did a very good job of that, but it's worth a try. At least he said the words. At least he explained to them that he was going to try to engage with them. I'm sorry, I don't think they were listening.
And so this is a fantastic debate challenge for me because Kent wins every single debate he has. I can't hope to beat this guy. He wins every single debate he has because he's defending the word of God and therefore automatically has the moral high ground. So I don't know how I can hope to defeat that except to maybe approach that idea a little bit with some evidence that maybe there are other interpretations of the word of God that are pretty good. And I'm gonna try and do that today because I think that's maybe not necessarily the best evidence for evolution, but it's probably like specifically the best for this particular audience.
Austin talks for the majority of his opening about religion, religious leaders who believed that God was all powerful, and that's fine. We'll get into it a little bit later on, why I think that particular tactic is a bad one. He then goes on to give an example of convergent evolution, which is a topic Kent squirms away from. Nobody brings up again, but here's the clip.
So Afrotheria, and it has these two species, the golden shrew, or no, not the golden shrew, the golden mole and the elephant shrew. And what's interesting about those two species is that even though they look like true moles and true shrews, they actually aren't as related to other species of true shrews and true moles as they are to like aardvarks, anteaters, elephants, and a couple other species in that clade. They're actually from a completely different clade. So evolution gives us insight in that way. And if it were wrong, we wouldn't be able to look at and tell, these species look morphologically similar, but genetically, we know they actually aren't.
Frankly, I think that whole thing was just white noise to Kent's audience. And he finished off by adding that evolution is evident in many, many, many fields of research. Unfortunately, he includes geography in that, which Kent lectures on to later. For now, though, Hovind just sticks to his usual script.
Tonight's supposed to be, is there evidence for evolution? So obviously, if you're going to discuss a topic like that, you have to define what you mean by those words. And I do this over and over. People say he goes to his script. Well, because the truth never changes, okay? Evolution, the process by which different kinds of living organisms are thought to have developed and diversified from earlier forms. Wait. Even that definition assumes you've already starting with living things.
Yes, Kent. Obviously, we start with living things. This is evolution, not abiogenesis. Evolution is kind of like generalized, right? Like you can, like Austin said, you can find it in many, many fields. But when it comes to abiogenesis, that is a very specialized field of research that, it's not really important to very many people. It's just interesting more than anything.
And 3.9 billion years ago, it began to rain on the rocks and made the oceans. And in the oceans, the first living organisms appeared. So Austin, if you're going to debate on the word evolution, do you mean you have an answer for organic evolution? How life got started from a hot ball of rock? You believe you came from a rock, Austin? If you believe in evolution. Let's see, Earth was a hot ball of rock. That's what they all teach, because that's what the theory says.
Well, I'm pretty sure that I was conceived in old Farmer Brown's hay barn. So does that mean that I come from a barn, Kent? It is funny how he dares to read the whole paragraph and then acts as if he didn't just read anything about water at all. It was all just a hot rock. So as predictable as it was, Hovind goes through his 6 types of evolution, and then Austin responds.
The way Kent is using the word evolution, there's way more than just 6 different kinds of it. There's, oceanic evolution, tectonic evolution, atmospheric evolution, theological evolution, philosophical evolution, mathematical evolution. There's an endless kinds of evolution that way. And I think all of them are well within the limits of God's infinite possibilities. There's limitless, infinite possibilities to God's creation, and every kind of evolution is in them.
And look, I know there are a lot of Christians that do use this to rationalize their beliefs in God with their knowledge of science, but that's not Kent's audience, I'm afraid. Kent's audience just saw you admit that your theory also needs God. God could have done it that way, yes, because God is all-powerful. He could do it absolutely any way he wanted. He could have pooped us all out of a cheetah's anus if he wanted, but he didn't. And they think that God told them specifically exactly how he did it. So you've just admitted defeat in their eyes. Austin then attempts to explain that speciation, which Kent already accepted, is the key, the very key to evolution.
If speciation is possible, then one population of organisms can easily become many populations of organisms. I think even Kent kind of accepts that.
Kent sticks rigidly to his script, explaining for many minutes about how speciation has limits, just like everything has limits. You can't have a 20-foot tall human. I think, Kent, that if we did have a 20-foot tall human, we would call them something else. By the time a species of human had diverged away from us far enough that they were becoming that tall on a genetic scale, we wouldn't consider them humans anymore, would we? We'd say, oh, look, some other species that we can no longer have sexual reproduction with. Open discussion begins, and Austin gets the chance to ask this question directly to Kent.
You admit that variations happen.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And I think it's an amazing
So
design.
how is that not evidence of evolution?
That's why you're not defining the word right. It is evidence that a really smart creator created animals with a gene code where some can survive in cold weather, some can survive in hot weather.
Whales are still technically mammals. They're still, they're in all the clades that their ancestors exist in, but they changed enough that it required something called cladogenesis, the idea of the creation of a new clade of organisms. They're still technically land mammals, except for the fact that they live in the sea now, but they have all the land mammal genetics, all the land mammal morphology. It is that exact thing that allows us to look at these organisms and say a whale is not a fish. It is not more closely related to fish than it is to land mammals.
And Kent dismisses it just as quickly.
Okay, you are assuming that the whale came from something else because it has features like breathing air and placenta and internal fertilization that many land mammals do. Okay, that's an assumption. That's not science. Nobody's ever seen a whale produce a non-whale.
Huh, that's true, Kent. Guess your God isn't all powerful. If you can't even make a non-whale come from a whale, kind of useless God is that? The debate kind of wraps up there, and the moderator points out that they mentioned Tiktaalik earlier and they haven't had a chance to discuss it, so he allows Austin some time to explain why Tiktaalik is such a fascinating example of the theory of evolution.
I think Tiktaalik is great evidence for evolution because it's a great evidence for evolution on multiple levels. One of the things that makes it great evidence for evolution is it shows predictive power. It shows that the theory has the ability to make predictions and they turn out correct.
And that is so true. The only reason we found Tiktaalik was because we used the fossil record and the geologic column in order to predict exactly where such a species would be likely to be found, exactly where and when this type of species might be found. We found Tiktaalik, and that's incredible. But Kent wasn't impressed. He said this.
The fact that they find fossils in certain orders is only an example of hydrologic sorting. Of course, clams will be found in a similar layer to other clams because they have similar body density. Generally, birds are found on the top layers because birds have a similar body density. They float, and they're the last ones to drown in a flood.
That doesn't make sense. With a second's thought, there are birds dead right now. So if a fox dies in the forest somewhere, what happens? Does its body just sink until it's below all the birds? Because the world flooded one day, so that's how soil works. It just knows, here's the lowest dead bird, fox, you're going down. Anyway, don't overthink it because it's over.
Austin, Kent, we can consider this the first of many, and so we'll have more opportunities to engage. Gentlemen, I appreciate the nature of tonight's debate. It was comprehensive in the sense that we had long openings, some rebuttals, and then also some back and forth discussion there, which flew by. And we did have the opportunity to engage the most relevant, important points for tonight's debate. Okay.
This was bad. I mean, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel now. We really are. And Hovind has not changed a single thing. I love watching these kind of debates because you always learn something new, even if you're watching a flat earther, because the person that they're debating has to defend reality, and they do so by telling you things that you otherwise wouldn't have looked into. Gravity, I don't know, there's many examples. Usually in a debate like this, I would learn something interesting about evolution or human psychology or something, but not Hovind. He has not changed a word of his argument. So this is the last time I'll be checking on him. If you've seen one Hovind video, you've seen them all. And if you haven't seen any, I would highly recommend, there are 2 people that I recommend. Obviously, I mentioned them at the start. Culture Catz debate, if you're into something funny, if you just want to sit back and chill. watch Culture Catz destroy Hovind. And if you want something more educational, where you're actually going to learn some interesting facts and watch a man absolutely rage, you want to see Aaron Ra, because that man knows what the hell he's talking about. And it's not just from doing a little bit of research like you or I might do. This man has studied this field for the majority of his life. So I hope you all enjoyed the video. I hope you all have a great day. And let's just leave this guy where he belongs in the past. Take care, everybody. Love you.